You know what's better than a political memoir? A political memoir that lands like a grenade in the middle of Downing Street while the Prime Minister is already juggling flaming chainsaws. Angela Rayner just announced she's publishing her tell-all autobiography in the second half of 2026. And somewhere in number 10, Keir Starmer just felt a cold sweat break out. I mean, imagine being the Prime Minister, already dealing with rebellions, terrible polling, and the looming disaster of May elections, and then your former deputy PM, the person who was literally second in command until very recently, decides now is the perfect time to write a book. Not just any book, mind you, but one that promises to be authentically Angela and unvarnished. In political speak, that translates to buckle up, because someone's about to spill all the tea, and it's going to be scalding. Welcome back to UK Political Insight, where we decode the chaos so you don't lose your mind trying to follow Westminster's never-ending soap opera. Today we're diving into why Angela Rayner's memoir announcement has sent shockwaves through Labour, why the timing couldn't be more suspicious if she tried, and what this means for Keir Starmer's increasingly precarious grip on power. Spoiler alert, it's not good news for the man in charge. So grab your popcorn, settle in, and let's unpack why this book deal is basically a political hand grenade with the pin already pulled. Right, let's start with the basics. Angela Rayner, former Deputy Prime Minister, former Housing Secretary, and current thorn in Keir Starmer's side, has signed a deal to publish her memoirs. The book was subject to a bidding war. Yes, a bidding war among publishers, which tells you everything you need to know about how juicy people think this is going to be. The Bodley Head, part of Penguin, ultimately snagged it, probably while high-fiving each other and already planning the publicity tour. And here's where it gets really interesting. The book will cover everything from her impoverished childhood and difficult upbringing all the way through to her resignation from government this year. That resignation bit, that's the bit that should have Starmer absolutely bricking it. Because, let's be honest, when a politician who's just left high office announces they're writing a memoir, they're not doing it to say how wonderful everything was and how much they loved working with everyone. No. This is the literary equivalent of settling scores. This is where you get to tell your side of the story, reveal what really happened behind closed doors, and maybe, just maybe, position yourself as the person who should have been in charge all along. And given that Rayner is currently the second most likely person to replace Starmer according to betting markets, right behind Health Secretary Wes Streeting, this isn't just a book. This is a campaign launch disguised as a memoir. Now, let's talk timing, because in politics, timing is absolutely everything. Rayner's book is dropping in the second half of 2026. That might seem ages away, but consider what's happening between now and then. May elections are coming up, and they're expected to be an absolute disaster for Labour. Starmer is already so worried about them that he's scheduling the King's Speech on May 12th or 13th, literally a week after voters go to polls, in a desperate attempt to make it harder for people to challenge his leadership. The logic being that nobody's going to mount a coup when the King's about to rock up to Parliament and announce the government's agenda for the next year. It's a clever tactic, I'll give him that. It's also the political equivalent of hiding behind your mate when someone's about to throw a punch at you. But here's the thing. If the May elections are as catastrophic as everyone expects, if Labour MPs decide Starmer's had his chance and blown it, if the knives come out and a leadership challenge materializes, guess whose book is going to be sitting there like Chekhov's gun, waiting to go off? Angela Rayner's. Even if she doesn't pull the trigger on a leadership bid immediately, the existence of this memoir, the promise of revelations, the tantalizing possibility of inside dirt on the Starmer government, all of that makes her a player. It keeps her name in the conversation. It reminds everyone that she's there, she's popular, and she's got a compelling personal story. And she doesn't come across like she's been media trained to within an inch of her life. In a political environment where voters are crying out for authenticity and sick to death of politicians who sound like they're reading from a script written by a committee of nervous advisors, Rayner's got something valuable. A friend of Rayner's told The Guardian that this won't be your standard politician's memoir. It will be authentically Angela and in her own voice. Now, if you're Keir Starmer, that sentence should terrify you more than anything else in this entire story, because standard politicians' memoirs are safe. They're boring. They're full of diplomatic language and carefully worded praise for former colleagues, even when you know they probably can't stand each other. But authentically Angela, in her own voice, that's code for no holds barred, no corporate speak, and definitely no pretending everything was fine when it absolutely wasn't. Alice Skinner, the editorial director at The Bodley Head, really leaned into this when she said the book will be unvarnished and upfront, and that readers can expect her authenticity to shine through. She also mentioned something about an empowering vision for a fairer, kinder society, and how it will spark change one reader at a time, which is lovely and inspirational and all that, but let's read between the lines here. An empowering vision for a fairer, kinder society. That's basically saying, here's what we should be doing instead of what we're actually doing. It's positioning Rayner as someone with better ideas, a clearer vision, and a more compelling narrative than the current leadership. It's a pitch. It's a manifesto wrapped in a memoir. Now, let's zoom out a bit and look at the bigger picture. Starmer's government is in trouble. Proper trouble. We've got backbench rebellions over jury trials, abysmal polling numbers, a criminal justice system in crisis, a cost of living squeeze that's still crushing people, and a general sense that labor isn't actually delivering the change they promised. And now we've got the May elections looming like a political guillotine. Many Labour MPs have reportedly marked these elections as Starmer's final chance to prove he can turn things around. If he fails, and let's be honest, all signs point to failure, they'll move to replace him. That's not speculation, that's just political reality. So into this already volatile situation drops Angela Rayner with a book deal and a smile. It's almost beautifully timed, in a ruthless sort of way. She doesn't have to do anything right now except write her book and watch Starmer squirm. She doesn't have to declare her intentions or make her move. The possibility alone is enough to unsettle things. Every time someone mentions her name now, they'll be thinking about that book. Every time there's a wobble in government or another rebellion or more terrible polling, people will wonder if Rayner's sitting there taking notes for Chapter 12. And let's talk about what might actually be in this book, because that's what's really got people buzzing. Obviously, we don't know yet. Rayner reportedly hasn't even decided on a title, which is frankly the least of anyone's concerns right now, but we can make some educated guesses. Her impoverished childhood and difficult upbringing will definitely feature prominently, and that's powerful stuff. It's the kind of personal narrative that connects with voters, especially working-class voters who feel like modern labor has lost touch with its roots. It's the "I'm one of you, I understand your struggles because I lived them" story that's incredibly effective in politics. But the really juicy bit, the bit that publishers were presumably fighting over, is going to be her time in government and her resignation. Why did she resign? What happened behind closed doors? Were there disagreements on policy, personality clashes, fundamental differences in vision? Did she see things that made her think the government was going in the wrong direction? Was she pushed out or did she walk? These are the questions everyone wants answered. And unlike a newspaper interview where she might be diplomatic, a memoir is where you get the full story, or at least her version of the full story, which in politics is often the only version that matters. There's also the housing tax controversy to address. Rayner's been dogged by questions about her living arrangements and whether she properly paid capital gains tax on a property sale years ago. It became a proper scandal, with opposition MPs calling for investigations and the media having an absolute field day. Now, she'll get to tell her side of that story in her own words without journalists framing the narrative or editing her quotes. That's valuable. That's the kind of thing that can either put an issue to rest or reignite it depending on how she handles it. And given that the betting markets still have her as second favorite to replace Starmer, despite this controversy, it clearly hasn't destroyed her political capital. What's absolutely fascinating here is the dynamic between Rayner and Starmer. On paper, they should be allies. They were literally running the government together until very recently. But politics isn't about what should be, it's about what is. And what is right now is a situation where Rayner's book announcement looks a whole lot like someone positioning themselves for a leadership bid. Whether that's intentional or just a happy accident, only she knows. But perception matters in politics, and the perception is clear. Rayner's making moves. And Starmer knows it. That's why he's playing defense, scheduling the King's speech right after the May elections to try and box in potential challengers. That's why advisors in Number 10 are briefing journalists about how hard it will be to challenge the PM when the King's about to rock up to Parliament and announce the government's agenda for the next year. It's a clever tactic, I'll give him that. It's also the political equivalent of hiding behind your mate when someone's about to throw a punch at you. But here's the thing. If the May elections are as catastrophic as everyone expects, if Labour MPs decide Starmer's had his chance and blown it, if the knives come out and a leadership challenge materializes, guess whose book is going to be sitting there like Chekhov's gun, waiting to go off? Angela Rayner's. Even if she doesn't pull the trigger on a leadership bid immediately, the existence of this memoir, the promise of revelations, the tantalizing possibility of inside dirt on the Starmer government, all of that makes her a player. It keeps her name in the conversation. It reminds everyone that she's there, she's popular, and she's got a compelling personal story. And she doesn't come across like she's been media trained to within an inch of her life. In a political environment where voters are crying out for authenticity and sick to death of politicians who sound like they're reading from a script written by a committee of nervous advisors, Rayner's got something valuable.